my friends. Today, during my sunrise meditation, I had an absolutely amazing thought form that came that allowed me to really look at a story that I read a very long time ago from a different perspective and expand on my understanding of that particular story. And that story is the book of Job. So I read the book of Job when I was a child. I couldn't have been more than 10 years old by the time I'd read Job. And by that point in time in my life, I had already undergone quite a bit. I had undergone trauma that children should never have to go through, and isolation, and I didn't have any friends, and it was very awkward. And so by the time I had hit 10 years old and read Job, it was kind of like oh, now I understand kind of perspective. I mean, at the age of 10, to think of one's life as, I've even come up with I use it as a verb, I've been Jobbed. I have understood this story from a perspective of not necessarily the testing of the Lord, but the faithfulness of the one who undergoes the test. Okay? Now, I want to talk about Job in 3 layers. The first layer, I want to talk about what he lost and what these distractions were doing for his relationship with the divine, okay? We all know that the story states that it was basically a bet between the devil and the Lord to state that there were faithful humans. I think this is more like one of those moments of, let me just press the red button because none of them are worth it anymore at this point. This is the feeling I get from this. And then God's like, no, just watch. Look at this guy right here. I bet you 10 to 1 I could take away everything in his life and he would still be faithful. It's not a matter of I'm better than you. It's a matter of there's still faithfulness in the world. And therefore, just like with Sodom and Gomorrah and the plea of if there's even just one, can we save them? That's the feeling I get from this. Not a bet of watch, I bet you 10 to 1, I can beat you kind of thing. No, it's there's still faithfulness. And even if there is one soul out there that is still faithful, why would I destroy them all if there's even just one? Because that one very well could be the one that remembers it all and changes everything. It only takes one. Think about how much of a change even just one Buddha or Yeshua or one person we deem as a saint, somebody that we always remember, one angel. It doesn't matter. There's just one. We always remember that one. Here it is, a long ass time later, and I'm still talking about Job. Okay? So even if there's just one mustard seed of faith, that mustard seed is worth saving. That's why we're talking about Job today, okay? I want you to start seeing your life in a different way. Not a bunch of bad shit happened to me, but I became closer to the divine because I went through trials that showed me what was most important in my life. And that's what we're talking about today. So, Job is not a random character, right? Job is a man of faith, and it is shown in his life because he is quite abundant. He has land. He has people that work for him, that work his land, that make his life easy so that he can enjoy the fruits of his earlier labor and his faith. Okay? So the very first thing that is lost is his wealth and his ability to easily regain that wealth. Okay? He loses his flock. He loses his workers. He loses his money. This is everything for a man of his stature. But what does wealth do to us? It can distract us, right? it can take us away from the actual importance of the reason we have that abundance. We are stewards when we are given abundance. We are not hoarders, right? We are given this abundance so that when it overflows, we pour forth to others as the steward. We are the vessel. We are not that which is in the vessel. That which is in the vessel comes from the divine, and we pour forth when we overflow. So if we allow that abundance to stay within us and we start to hoard, this becomes a distraction. We are no longer seeing the abundance as the gift from the divine for us to give to those around us. We become distracted. So he loses his ability to have this wealth, to show that he will still maintain faithfulness. Okay? The second thing that he loses is his family and his legacy. The generations that were going to come after him that hold his particular faithfulness wiped out. This was his joy. He loved his family deeply. It wasn't just his legacy. This was also his joy, that which he created through love, which created love, right? So now he's lost his wealth and the physical manifestation of love around him. Just because the physical representation goes away does not mean that the connection goes away, right? That is where we're connected to the divine. We're connected to the divine, and in that way, we are connected to the ones we've lost along the way. We're still connected to them, even if they are not in our physical reality. So this is why these had to be removed, so he could still maintain that connection to the divine and realize that he was still connected to the ones he loved, and that legacy would continue after death. So it's not just about love, it's about recognizing that life may be finite, but love is infinite. And number 3 is his health. What happens when we start to lose our health? He loses his eyesight. He becomes literally blind, no longer able to see. Now he has no way to make any money. He has no family to take care of him. And now he can't even take care of himself. This is where absolute trust in the divine comes into play, right? At this point, he's literally lost everything. If you don't have your wealth, your health, and your love, what do you have? This was the final bit of the test, right? Can you elevate yourself beyond your own lamentations, your own limitations, and maintain that connection to the divine? Okay, let's talk about the responses that he had to each of these, okay? So the very first thing that in all of these situations, he always lamented first. He did. In some cases, he complained. Yeah, absolutely. But that's justifiable, right? Because what he may have reacted did not lead to anger. It actually led to worship. Interesting. He recognized, I am being self-piteous, and turned to worship. One of the things that he stated is, I forget, never mind. But this shows trust, okay? It doesn't just show trust, it shows that he recognized that, yes, there is suffering. Oh, that's what it was. That's on the next one. So the next response was when he started to lose his health and everything. His wife was like, just curse God and die. You've obviously messed up beyond all belief. Just do it. And he responds, no. If we can accept the good from God, shouldn't we also be able to accept the bad? These are not things that are meant to harm us. They are things that are meant to awaken us and bring us closer to the divine. Okay? And this is really important to understand. Like, I understand this from all three perspectives, right? So if specifically the loved ones, okay? I buried a husband, and this was extremely difficult because I had to recognize that my connection with him was not just in the physical realm, right? After he passed away, every time I saw a cardinal, I immediately thought about him because I've always been told that the cardinals are our loved ones coming to visit us. And every time I saw a male cardinal, I automatically thought about him. This was him showing me that our connection was still there, even if it wasn't physically visible in my immediate environment. This is what he's saying. He's saying, yes, I absolutely loved the wonderful wealth and abundance I had in my life. It made me happy. I enjoyed my children. But these were things that were given to me and I accepted them. If I don't accept the negative consequences of life, how can I possibly be grateful for the things that are good if I'm not also grateful for the things that are not as good, but lead to a closer relationship with the divine, with that which is non-visible? Okay, when we have a lot of chaos in our outside world and we end up like finding ourselves in a situation where we're unhappy and we end up finding a way to be by ourselves and sometimes cry by ourselves. Why do we do that? We do that because when we isolate ourselves, we have the ability to be closer to the divine because it's quiet. And when it's quiet, we can hear, right? Even if we're just crying. One of my absolute favorite poems is the Footsteps poems. This is the time when you are being held by the divine, even if you don't recognize it on a conscious level. When you separate yourself and go into a small space or any space by yourself, you are admitting to yourself that you are safe when you're held by the divine. These are the moments when you are being carried by the divine. That's why there's only one set of footprints. Remember that. You are not alone. You are being carried. And these tragic things that happen in our lives are those moments that are there to bring us closer to the divine, to make us remember, hey, it's not about the physical world around you. It's about learning how to connect to the divine, learning how to connect to God, learning to get past that which you see that is not permanent, right? This is all finite. Every single thing in this entire environment will eventually break down. But the connection that I have to the divine will never go away. That is far more important, which is exactly why he doesn't curse God. Because he knows that if he's willing to accept that which is good, he must also be grateful for that which falls apart. Because it is a reminder that physical wealth, physical health, and physical manifestations of love will fade. But the connection to the divine will never fade unless you walk away from it. So, then after this, like once he's just lost everything, now he goes into this questioning phase. He starts to question everything, which actually happens. It really does. Like when you get to a certain point in time in your life, when you've realized your entire life you've been jobed, like you sit there and you're like, dude, what the heck? What did I do? But this is the point in time where you don't question and then turn away. You question and then turn inward. What was it that I learned? I learned that love comes from the divine, and it is given to us in specific ways when we are in our physical realm in order to be able to remember the connection to the divine. Okay? If every single person you ever meet is a spark of the divine, then they are meant to be in your life in that moment to teach you something about your connection to either yourself, which is the divine, or the divine itself. Think about it this way, okay? You are recovering from any kind of unhealthy relationship. It doesn't have to necessarily be a vindictive relationship, just an unhealthy relationship. Sometimes we go into relationships and we're just super codependent upon each other because we're both wounded and we both just want to comfort each other, and that's okay. That's a moment in time that you needed that, right? You needed that relationship in that period of your life to get you through something. Okay? Even if it was a malicious relationship and you blame yourself for sticking in that relationship for too long, there's a reason you were there for that long. I don't care if it was 2 months or 10 years. There's a reason you were there for that long. It wasn't necessarily a cycle that you had to, stop repeating. There's something in that environment that drew you to that environment in order to be able to remove a part of you that was separating you from your connection to the divine. Okay? Do not ever shame yourself. Don't sit there and think that, you took too long to learn a lesson. No. Some of us are built to have a much higher pain tolerance than others, right? So we joke about this as women all the time. Men sit there and complain about a cold, and we give birth to children, right? We have a different pain tolerance. It's the same with emotional pain or even spiritual pain. Your tolerance for pain may have just been so high that your threshold had never been reached until that moment you decided to leave. If you endured in a physically abusive relationship for a long period of time, do not shame yourself. Tell yourself that there's a reason. And you had to feel that particular threshold of pain in order to be able to realize this isn't actually the connection that I had hoped for. And then you have to battle the fear. Because the fear of leaving a physically abusive relationship is almost more intense than the fear of being hurt. This is the way that we have to go through and understand our experiences so that we don't turn into that which we're not meant to turn into, right? You wouldn't go through this if you couldn't handle it. Even if you fell off of your path, that's okay. There's no better time to get back on. There's no better time to say, you know what? I'm done living this way. And even though Job questions the justice and says, well, how is it that evil men live to be this age and then never have anything terrible happen to them? Or what is the unfairness? But he even regretted ever being born, but he never cursed God. He questioned and questioned and questioned, right? And then when God comes and explains to him, hey, there's things you don't understand about the cosmos. I understand it. And I have talked about this before. We're human, right? Humans have only been around for so long, right? How long has that mountain down the road been there? Okay? That's the point that God makes to Job is you've only been here for a short period of time. I've been around for quite a while. I understand the cycles of life. I understand the cosmos. Don't worry. What I'm doing isn't for your worst good. And thank you for not cursing me. Right? So once he understands that he understands nothing, he fully accepts. Now, I challenge you to go a step further than Job. Don't require that God explains to you that you don't understand everything. Go a step further than Job did. Instead of questioning the outside world, instead of questioning why does that person get it and I don't, go inward and try and figure out how all of these situations lead back to the divine. Try and figure out how every single thing that you've ever overcome, been through, cried about, fucking around or whatever. Look at every single thing and see how does it lead back to my relationship with God? Does it show me what I don't want in my life? Does it show me how much chaos brings pain? Does it show me how much stillness and sitting in silence and actually connecting to the divine is important? Go further than just questioning. Analyze and use your wisdom. Trace it back. And don't get Jobbed, because you'll see it coming. You'll know, this is meant to make me stop for a moment and connect. What is it that I need to learn in this lesson? Have a great day, guys.